Welcome to Country Fried Rock. I'm your host, Sloan Spencer. Give y'all a little behind-the-scenes view of what's been going on for us over this fall. Towards the end of 2014, we relocated our studios, which took much longer than planned, only to discover our hard drives were damaged in the expansion. So, after shipping them off to a couple of different data recovery locations, we finally were able to recover a couple of programs that we had intended to air over the fall. During that delay, that's what led to some of those road trip recordings, which are great conversations, but not such fabulous audio quality. Today, though, here's one of our recovered programs, a chat with Mike Zito about his live record, as well as wrapping up his run with the Royal Southern Brotherhood. We actually recorded this just before that went public, so we talked about everything except him moving on. Mike Zito today on Country Fried Rock. My guest today on Country Fried Rock is Mike Zito. Good morning.
Good morning, Sloan. How are you doing?
I am well, thank you. Appreciate you joining us this early.
Oh, no. It's not that early, is it?
No, actually, it could be worse. Thrilled to be able to talk with you because you have so much going on that overlaps with what we do in Country Fried Rock. You have a new album and DVD coming out. How did that come to be?
My group, which is Mike Zito and the Wheel. You know, I've been doing my own albums for years, just as Mike Zito, but then I kind of put this band together just over the years, you know, of finding the right musicians that I wanted to actually, like, you know, keep as a band. And so we did a studio record last year on Roof Records called Gone to Texas. It, you know, did very well. We didn't get a lot of time to tour because of the other group I'm in, the Royal Southern Brotherhood. But we did do some shows, and at the beginning of this year, we went to in my hometown region where I live now, to Houston, Texas, and you know, I wanted to capture the band live because there's a real energy and it's a really exciting band, and I wanted to because we didn't get to tour a lot. And I knew I wouldn't get to tour a lot again this year. Mm-hmm. I wanted to put something out, especially for our fans in Europe, in Scandinavia. You know, we've been doing so well there. You know, they don't always get to see the bands that we get to see, and I wanted to put out a DVD, you know, a live concert where they could see this band that I'm really proud of and excited. So yeah, we went to Houston in January. You know, packed the place out and set up and rocked out, and you know, really, I think the band did a great job. It turned out great.
That's cool. And so it will also be a DVD as well.
It is. It is actually. It's a DVD and it's a live CD. It's a double set, you know, that comes out together.
What does touring over there bring for you?
It's funny. I live in a small town in Texas, and I kind of like it. You know, it's nice. It's quiet. It's funny. We go on these tours. We go to Europe and we play, and man, we get, you know, great big crowds, and, you know, mostly because, one, they're so it's American music, so they're so excited. You know, I mean, for my first times coming over, I remember seeing posters where they have like the American flag or the Texas flag, and they don't really know. You know, maybe at first they didn't even know who it was, but they know someone from America's coming, and they're playing like blues or rock or, you know, some kind of American music. So they line up like anywhere and make a connection with them. And we've been fortunate enough to make connection in overseas with our fans. They really come out. And so I guess the point is, you know, maybe I come home and, you know, people ask me what I'm doing, and then they'll look online and see. And, you know, we have great turnouts, really great attendance from the audiences. And it's fun because I don't think everyone back home realizes what's going on over there. For a lot of the bands, not just, we're very fortunate, but a lot of the bands, you know, the people really come out and support, and they really go crazy for the music.
Well, you mentioned that y'all are on Roof Records, which until you just said it, I always thought was Rough Records without an F.
That's okay. Many people I'm sure think that, yeah.
But that's a fabulous German label.
It is. It's a great label. It's been around for a little over 20 years now. It's where blues. It's like blues rock. You know, it's like a good combination. It's a very wide door there, so we can. One that's wonderful thing about it is that we can kind of do whatever we want to do. If we're someone like myself or the Royal Southern Brotherhood, where you know, I mean, I love blues, and I'm a blues fanatic, but I also kind of write, you know, country-ish rock and southern rock sound of music, you know, just different stuff. And they never question, well, it's got to be this way. It's got to be this, it's pretty wide open. So you can be very creative and kind of mix the genres. And that's the other thing I found about, special in Europe. They're not nearly as, interested in, well, that's, if you're playing blues, then you have to do just this. And then that's not blues. I mean, it seems they're more accepting of the the cross-pollinating of the genres.
For sure.
So that's what's great about the label is, Thomas Roof allows you to mix it up and kind of do your own thing. And he's more interested in making good music than trying to stick to, some kind of, guideline. So, but it's a great label, and it has had a lot of great artists over the years.
Hey, y'all, this is Sloan Spencer, the host of Country Fried Rock. We've had an incredible year with more people finding us on the radio and our podcast than we ever imagined. Thank you all so much. Careful what you wish for. You just might get it.
Hey, this is Mike Zito, and you're listening to Country Fried Rock.
Question specifically about recording something live. What is different about after the recording when you have a live record?
Well, okay, that's pretty good. I've been producing now for a while, and I did produce my own record last year, my studio record, Gone to Texas. And even the producers I've worked with, one of the things that we always do when we go in the studio, for me, the kind of music that I like, is we try to, record live. Even though we're in the studio, we try to set up the band, and we try to get everybody to play together, because that's where you're going to get a real energy in the performance rather than tracking, one instrument at a time or going back and trying to play the guitar solo over and over until you get it right, that kind of thing. To me, that just loses all the rock and roll essence, It should be going for it. So we try to do that in the studio recordings, but as far as the live recording goes, look, the bottom line is that the studio, we do have a safety net. So we go in, we set up, we play, and then if it's like, oh, okay, well, let's do it again. Let's try it again. And then the band can all play again, So with the live recording, I mean, this was the first time I ever, worked on producing a live album or DVD or something especially DVD. You have all these cameras going and everything's set up, and we've got, like I said, we've got a full house and everything's ready to go. And this is it. We're not doing 2 nights. We're not doing 5 nights and putting together the best. We're doing 1 night. And it didn't really hit me because we made these studio albums kind of similar until that night. It was like, okay, this is it. Either it works out or it doesn't work out. And that's kind of the attitude you have to have going in. So, everything's mic'd up just like it would be in the studio, and it's all set up for the live sound. And the audio engineers are there, and they're running all the lines and everything. They got all the audio going. And so you're in a situation where, well, what if the band does a great job, but the computers they're recording on, one of them stops working? Oh, well, there you go, or one of the cameras go. I mean, to me, it starts to become very real, really very quick. Like, this is it. So you have to have a kind of a fun approach to it. Like, well, let's just see what happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, But luckily for us, everything was meant to be. The biggest thing is at the end, that you get good audio quality on your recording, and then with the DVD, they got good lighting and footage and stuff. And thankfully, everything worked out fantastic, and the audience was fantastic. And so, the only thing different is now you've got all the recording. There it is, and it is what it is. Some of those stories from the history, of Frampton Comes Alive, really famous records where they made this live album because live albums were so famous there in the 70s. They became such a big thing, and they went back and they re-recorded
lots
the parts over. They added in all the harmonies, and then they that solo wasn't perfect, and they went and played it all over again. And so basically you've got a studio album with an audience. Because of the way I like to record and the way I was convinced, look, if something's so bad, then we just don't use that song. But I was really opposed to going back into retracking or fixing too much. If it was just something very little that we could fix. And like I said, luckily we didn't have really much to fix. It's a live recording. It's live audience, live performance. But afterwards you take the tracks to the studio just like you would, and you hand it to the engineer, and he's got to mix it, master it, and try to make it all come together. Again, part of it being on Roof Records and being in the more roots genre of blues and Americana and Southern rock. And we are more fortunate, in my opinion, that maybe we don't make the big money, but we can put real music out. But I think when you're part of the machine, you probably have to. They won't let you put it out unless it's perfect. And who wants to listen to perfection? That sounds awful.
And then when you go see them live, you're like, whoa, are these the same people? So, yeah.
Right? Yeah, right. Did you ever remember the video from the old music video from Blues Traveler where out front they have all the good-looking band, the good-looking kids in there, but then behind there is like Blues Traveler guys are all fat and hairy, and they're the ones that can play really good.
Doing that thing.
That's funny.
When you're looking at songs that go in the various projects that you have, how does that divvy out for you? More for your different projects with what's Royal Southern Brotherhood, what is for Mike Zito or Mike Zito in the Wheel? Like, how do the songs find their way to your different, because you have a ton of different things going on.
When it comes to writing like that, that's interesting. I did recently on the last Brotherhood record, then I come into a situation where, a lot of times when I'm writing songs, I mentioned to you before we started the interview, I have 5 kids, I'm married, and I have, 2 bands. I have all this. I have so much going on that I have to put time aside to write a song. It comes in waves. So really, for me, when I know a project's getting ready to happen, and I've started to think I need to plan ahead. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And that's been my course, the way I've kind of done it. So when I know I have an album coming up, I start getting my ideas together about a year out and start literally just jotting things down and messing around with the guitar a little. And then it becomes more focused as we get closer. I start reeling it in. But I don't necessarily have enough time where I'm sitting around churning out songs, and then I think, who will this work for, It's really kind of delegated ahead of time because I'm thinking of the next project. So as we were going into the next, the Brotherhood project, which is called Heart, Soul, Blood, we had, about a year ahead, everyone knew we had a new album. We didn't know what it was called. You don't know exactly what it's going to be. But I'm thinking of, that helps me. I'm thinking of the band. It's a different band than my band. We have 3 singers and 2 guitars and all these other things going on. So it lends itself to me going, okay. So I started writing songs differently that maybe I wouldn't write for myself because maybe I couldn't do it. I couldn't pull it off or whatever. So that's what I did on the last album. And actually, I brought too many songs. And we recorded quite a few of them, and some we didn't use. And so they were left over. And I thought, great. These were good. I'll keep them maybe, and I'll get to use them. And so now here I am. I'm thinking of next year. I'm going to make a new studio album with my group next year. And I just pulled these songs out from the Heart, Soul, Blood sessions that we didn't use. And I was like, well, that won't work. It doesn't fit what I'm thinking in my head of what I'm going to do. It fits the Brotherhood. I don't know how other writers are. I know some of the guys that I'm friends with in Nashville, they just have just a library of songs, and then they'll think of, say a project's coming, and they'll go dig into it and go find songs and go, hey, here, listen to this one, or maybe this one, And I think that's what a real songwriter does, right? They have this catalog of songs, whereas I think that I'm a songwriter, but I'm really writing for the project that I'm in right now. So I'm not necessarily just trying to write a good song and stockpile them. I'm thinking of what's the story. Like, what's the story? What are we doing? What are we telling? What's the outline? I need like some input that way. That's kind of become my thing the past maybe 5 or 6 years. Before I just write songs aimlessly and then, that's a pretty good song. And then you put them all together on a record and there's some good songs on there, but the record doesn't really make sense or doesn't kind of all over the place, Maybe 3 or 4 records ago, I learned that if we could kind of put them in, some kind of an order. Does this make sense? Do they go together? Is there a story? Is there some kind of a vibe where they line up? That's the best records. When you put on the CCR, Bayou Country, or I don't know, Eat a Peach, the Allman Brothers. Like everything goes together.
Hey, y'all, this is Sloan Spencer, the host of Country Fried Rock. Those of y'all who listen on our podcasts, it's a quick hit of just the conversation. If you want the full radio program with all the songs that we talk about, ask for it on your local radio station. joining 20 other stations across the country. Get the goods at countryfriedrock.org.
Hey, this is Mike Zito. If you're interested in hearing some of my music or coming out to some of our shows, please take a minute and get on to MikeZito, Zito.com. I've got links to all our Facebook and social media, Twitter, blogs, everything, and you can find out when we're coming to your town. My favorite version of vinyl and concept and story is the Bruce Springsteen, theory that somewhere in there when he was doing, it ended on Born in the USA, and before that it was The River and Darkness on the Edge of Town, right? So those three, if I'm correct, those three go in order. And it was after he did his first three that ended with Born to Run. Born to Run he had this whole other thing. So then he started this new, because he was really getting into, and it's based on a vinyl record. There's four sides. So he called it it's called the Four Corners approach. He's trying to start the story at the beginning of the side one of the vinyl, and so that's the first corner, and the second corner is the end of side one, where it ends a certain way, and ends kind of sad or downtrodden or hopeless, and then side two picks up with this like rebellious, that would be the third corner, and it ends like hopeful. I mean, that is actually his whole, like, he thought of this, And now when you think, well, he thought of it, you might think, if someone told you something like that, like, this is what they were thinking, and they weren't Bruce Springsteen yet, you might go, you're crazy. What is wrong with you? That's ridiculous. But I guess if you sold Born in the USA that was the pinnacle. That's he would try these ideas or these theories of how to tell a story. He would do them in threes, and by the third record, it either worked or he didn't do it again. So that was based on the vinyl, Four Corners approach. Born in the USA was his final Four Corners approach, and it, of course, sold, I don't know, whatever, zillion records. But it's all based on vinyl. It's all based on you have the listeners holding a record, and they're putting it on. And they're listening to the end of that side, and then they have to go and stop and take it, and then lift it and turn it over. And so they're involved, like they're taking part in the story. If they're flipping over and going to the next side and going on, they're reading the book, and they're holding the cover. And so, that whole thing, all of that got lost somewhere. I think when the physical product shrunk to a CD, the book got smaller. It went back to that thing where it was singles, just songs, just a hit. It just slowly faded away, the idea of an experience with an album. We put vinyl out of our albums. So I'm sure the listeners that are maybe my age and in their 40s and 50s and on or whatever, they're getting it again and reliving that experience they had when they were young, which is great. But I don't think that the young people are getting it and having the experience that we had in the 70s and 80s. And there was so much mystery to it because that's all you had was this record. Like, there was no computer to go get on and find everything out about the person immediately. All you had was what you were holding. And you had to wait till the next one. You know what I mean?
So where does the visual come in for you all in the creation of your art? For
me, I'm thinking, even if it's broad-based, that there's some kind of a story or there's some kind of a, whatever the connection is. The last record that I did called Gone to Texas, I had a lot to work with. Part of it was I moved to Texas. I'd run away. I was a really bad drug addict, and I ended up in Texas, and I got clean in Texas and got my life together, and my music career took off. And that really happened. And it was like, well, there you go. That sounds good.
So not just the euphemism of gone to Texas, as in left the family.
Literally, and then when I did some Texas history reading, which I just think is fascinating, I learned about the term "gone to Texas," which is historical about people that had moved to Texas when it was not a part of the colonies, and they were getting in trouble, like they'd get in trouble with the law, or they were on the run for murder, or whatever. They would take off and go to Texas. So I ended up just kind of combining this whole kind of historical thing in my story. And that's one of the things I've learned as a songwriter is that if I can be the more open I can be, the more I can relate to people. If I'm willing to share the absolute truth about my life in my songs, I think that's the only thing you have nowadays that can kind of break through, is that just if you can be brutally honest about things, it catches people because it catches them off guard. They're not used to it anymore. And So I think visually for that record, I mean, we did put an LP out, and that's a whole other story. But, I mean, I had the whole idea in mind that this was my Texas album. I mean, you've got the Lone Star flag and the theme and the sounds, and it was a whole thing where I had not only my own personal songs, in which I could deal with songs about recovery and songs about maybe Texas, but then I had styles, like I could do Texas blues song, and Delbert McClinton sang with me, you know, and he's a Texas artist. And then I recorded a Delbert McClinton song that he wrote, but then I also recorded a Lightning Hopkins song out of Houston, and that was another side of Texas music. It was this huge thing, like, wow, you got a lot to work with here.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can do another record like that again. That's done. Right. So then it's like, well, maybe the next time visually, or maybe just altogether, it's more about maybe like, you know, my next record might be like just a different approach sonically, like a vibe or sound. I'm not sure yet.
The people that I have spoken with who are songwriters who have gotten clean have talked about the fear of getting clean and that their creativity would disappear. But of the people that have been on this show, they have all said that it opened them up in ways they never imagined, but that fear is what kept them from getting clean in the first place for many of them.
Yeah, I have a really good friend that I won't say his name, but really close songwriting friend and artistic hero. I was with him when he was making the decision to get clean, and I remember asking him, like, well, what do you just go to this rehab? What's the worst thing that could happen? He said, well, it might work. You know, he was like really concerned, like it might work. Personally, the process of being clean over years, that the creativity has come on stronger through years of sobriety than I thought it before I got sober. You know, when you're drunk all the time and you're high all the time, and then, you know, you're doing something, you think it's great because you're drunk. You're high, you're like, this is great, man. But you don't really know. I mean, you're messed up. You're not really giving yourself a chance. I never really became an artist until I became sober. There was a process there. I mean, I had to almost basically relearn how to do everything. And you can hear everything, including all of the things you don't want to hear, which gets blocked out when you're drunk, you know. So even from a performer, say, playing guitar, it was, night and day. The first time you go and play sober and you're not going to get, you know, smashed. And it's like, oh, this is out of tune. That doesn't sound good. What's that guy doing? That's not good. Hold on. We need to get together here. You people, it was a whole thing where for some years, I mean, it was trying to get comfortable again. I became very tight for a while there. But I think, you know, over time, the creativity has for myself has really it's flowed. Because, I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, it's full awareness all the time, like it or not. So I'm pretty open-minded, for one, and I'm listening and I'm hearing and it's all happening. You know, it's not induced. I think that's true. I mean, I get it. Don't get me wrong, I get it. You see some of these artists and you think, wow, well, you know, could Jimi Hendrix have played guitar that way if he wasn't, you know, on acid, you know, like they say he was all the time? I would think so. Maybe it would be more subdued. Maybe it wouldn't have been as crazy or as wild. Obviously, drugs and alcohol have a big effect on people and that are anything artistic. And just in general, you can be a normal person and go get drunk and be a jerk and start fights, and it's all under the influence. So I know that great art has taken place under the influence of many types of mind-altering substances. You can't deny it. That's just true. Some of the great writers and artists, painters, and I just think now, well, if that's the only way you can get there, is it real? You know, I don't know.
I'm your host, Sloan Spencer. You can keep in touch with us on Facebook, but I really like Twitter, where we are at Country Fried Rock, ending with ROK. And if you want to see pictures of my shoes, my dog, and my lunch, stop by Instagram. But whatever way you like to hang out, stop by and say hey.
Hey, this is Mike Zito. I know you're interested in getting your hands on a copy of my new double live DVD CD, Songs from the Road. You can buy it on Amazon.com. You can get it on iTunes at MikeZito.com.
Thank you for speaking to that. I think that's a fear for a lot of people.
And it is. I mean, it is fearful. The bottom line is, if you can't go out and sing, you know, Janis Joplin had to drink this bottle of Southern Comfort every night. And it's like, wow, that's kind of a shame. One, she doesn't know that she could have done it without it because it never happened probably. Or she died too soon, and that's that. I think that it is possible that if it's in you, you can find it again. It just takes a lot more work, time and effort, and I don't think, most of these people that have died, they just died too soon and they never had a chance. So I think people that are coming up along the way, it's like, how do you know? You don't even know.
Yeah.
When was the last time you went and you wrote or you performed and you were sober?
To be fully present and still be able to share in such a brutally honest way is a lot more honest and open.
There's nowhere to hide, that's for sure. There's nowhere to hide, and I think that's what I mean about the honesty. I think when you put it out there and you go, well, there you go, it's flawed. Maybe from the subject matter to my voice cracks, I didn't hit all the notes exactly the way I wanted to. Where if I was maybe drunk, none of those things would faze me, but I hear it all now, and I'm still putting it out there. And I think that's the kind of thing that it draws people in. Fans come in, because, real music fans, they want real. They want honest performances, harder to come by these days.
We can't leave out Royal Southern Brotherhood. How did y'all come together?
That's a great story, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the Royal Southern Brotherhood's been fantastic for me. I started making my own albums in the 90s independently, and, you're building a career and trying to get your name out there and stuff, and somewhere along the way, you need, if you're lucky enough, you get to be in the Royal Southern Brotherhood. You need something that kind of puts you over, gets you over to another, into another level, people kind of getting to know who you are and know your music. So I'm eternally grateful to be a part of that group. And it come together, very logically and simple and without really anyone maneuvering. There's not someone that was like, okay, we're going to do this and this guy, It started this way. I've known Devin Allman for, a long time, 15 years, 16 years. He moved to St. Louis when he was in his 20s. His family moved there. I'm from St. Louis. Born and raised there, and now I live in Texas. So see, he's from Texas. He now lives in St. Louis. It's funny, right?
Yeah.
I know who he was. We had met, because he played in bands. I played in bands. And then around 1999, we ended up working at a Guitar Center together for off and on for maybe a year or so, and became, friends, friendly, and both had bands, and we played some shows together. And as the music careers went on, he was one of all the people that I knew out of St. Louis. He was one of the guys that he was out touring. We'd be out touring, and I'd see his poster, and so I always, I kept up with him maybe just more than any of the others because I'd see his name out there. And Cyril Neville, Cyril Neville is managed by my manager, manages Cyril Neville.
Okay.
And about 3 records ago, 2009, I made an album called Pearl River in New Orleans, and that was one of my first records where I had like an idea and a story and such, and it was kind of based around New Orleans. So my manager at the time, we invited some New Orleans artists, and one was Cyril Neville. So Cyril was to write a song with me, and he sent me lyrics to a song called Pearl River that he wrote. It's a very deep story about the Pearl River, which runs through Louisiana, Mississippi, and I put the music to it, put the melody to it, and sent it back to him, and he liked it, which was great, and we recorded it as a duet, and it became the title track, and it won, in 2010, it won the Song of the Year Blues Music Awards in Memphis. So that was a big, big boost for me. And for Cyril, obviously I've known who Cyril was, but he didn't know who I was. But all of a sudden we win an award songwriting, and we became, fast friends, and thought, well, let's write some more songs because we really get along. We really get along. Like there's a real connection between us, which is fun and odd at the same time, being that, he's 65, I'm 43, white, black, Italian. It's this funny thing, but my family did come originally into New Orleans. The
cool.
Zito family, yeah. He recalls being young and knowing some Zitos.
Wow.
So we just started writing songs. And around 2011, Devin called and said, man, who's managing you? Because you seem to be doing pretty good. And I told him, and I said, you should meet him. And so he came and played New Orleans, and he met our manager. And in the midst of all that somewhere, I said something to the likes of, man, how come the Allman Brothers and Neville Brothers, have they ever played together? They'd been around, in a lot of the same circles, and that the Neville brothers before with the Meters haven't played on all these records, and we had that conversation for about a week, I think, and then my manager said, you guys ought to get together during Jazz Fest, see if you guys can't write some songs together as a trio. And I was like, okay. We had shows, and so we all got together a couple afternoons and jammed, goofed off. At no point was I ever thinking like, oh, we're gonna make a band. I don't want to be in a band. I'm trying to have my own band, and I don't want to join a band. So we were just writing songs, and by the end of summer, it just had been tossed around so much, and said, "Would you be interested in going to play some shows?" Yeah, okay. I mean, we don't have a band, we never practiced or nothing, and we went and played like 2 festivals as just a jam and kind of cut loose. And it was fun. It was really fun. By then we had come into our bass player, Charlie Wooten. Mm-hmm. He had arrived, and it was like, that's pretty good. And it was like, well, do you guys want to make a record? It was really that way. It was over 9 months. It was like really simple. Every step of the way, like, well, all right.
That's crazy. And so then, like, Jan Rico just showed up or something?
Yeah, Jan Rico. I met Jan Rico at the studio, in Dockside Studios, for the very first time the night before we're going to record our first record. Like, he had become available, and that was really the ceiling. I was interested, like, of course, it sounds a lot of fun, but I'm not in bands. It's usually just Mike Zito. I mean, I'm working and I'm doing my music, and so I'm never thinking like I'm going to go start a band. Like, that just didn't sound like a good idea for me. I said, especially the age I'm at now, but it sounded fun. But when they said, I said, well, who's going to play drums? And they said, well, you know what? Jan Rico Scott is available, and he's really interested. I was like, all right, I'll be in the band, I mean, I think he's just great. I'm such a fan of his. So, yeah, we met. I walked in the studio, and there was Jan Rico, and we looked at each other and smiled. And we were the only ones there at the studio with the engineer. And I said, hey, man, you want to record a song? And he said, yeah. And I went and got my guitar, and he got on the drums. And we played 2 songs, and the guy recorded, and those tracks are on the album. So me and him just really hit it off, really. Of all the musicians, Jan Rico and I don't know, there's a really, really good connection there.
His groove is just, I mean, he's unreal.
Yeah, it's so big that it took me a year to get used to. And that's a God's honest truth. It's such a big, it really taught me a lot, and continues to, but it took about a year for me to realize how big this groove is. It's really moving. I've learned a lot, but that's how the band really did come together. We made an album, and everyone, wrote songs and brought songs in, and it really turned out, I think, for considering what I just told you, it turned out really great. And then we had to go on and go. Then we had to go to work. You had to go play, and it was like, well, we don't really all know each other, and now we're going to all go. We've never, the band was born in the studio, and now we're going to go see if we can be a band, So the first year was, it was like, okay, you got to get to know each other and learn people, and because if you were going to put your own band together, you're going to go find people that do what you want them to do and get along, and you know what I mean. Easy to work with. Okay, this guy, I just want you to do that. Okay, no problem, and that's it. This is 5 hard-headed people got thrown into a bowl, and they're getting all mixed up, you know what I mean? And you have to smooth out. It's not easy, but I think in the end, it's been a joy. And the band, again, and then into the second run, we did a live record. Right. We did the Songs from the Road, and then we did Heart, Soul, Blood, and that was where, it was like, well, we got to write songs as a band because we've been on tour for 3 years. So we'd be playing shows, and we do sound checks, and I got a riff, we start jamming and try this out, that kind of thing. It's been really, really, really enjoyable, and it certainly has helped me in my career. People kind of get to know my music that had never heard of it, probably more than anybody else in the band, because I'd been putting out so much music and touring and doing things, but, it's just really hard to get over some of these humps, and this really helped me quite a bit of credibility to be in the band with Jan Rico and with Cyril and Charlie and with all of the guys. And with Devin's, obviously, played at Wani, we played in front of Greg, we go to the Beacon shows, things like that I would never have gotten to do. Just like anyone else, let me tell you, I'm a fan, and the Allman Brothers have probably been one of my favorite bands of all time, and has been since I've known Devin. And Devin's always done his own thing. Devin has his own thing. And I remember arguing with Devin 15 or 16 years ago about don't you know your uncle's like one of the greatest guitar players ever? And he's like, yeah, but I'm not really, at the time he was like, I'm not really into it. Yeah, I can't imagine what that's like. But it's been great. The Royal Southern Brotherhood is great. And anytime anybody asks me what's it like, I said, man, it's like a circus. It's what John Hyatt said. John Hyatt said, that's not a band. That's an extravaganza.
That's a great line. Thanks so much. Safe travels to you, and I really appreciate your time, Mike Zito.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
countryfriedrock.org. Copyright 2015. All rights reserved. Our 2015 bed music is from Drivin' and Cryin's debut album, Scarred But Smarter. Got a great band you want to hear on Country Fried Rock? The best thing to do is tweet us at Country Fried Rock. That's Country Fried, R-O-K. You can subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes. Just search Country Fried Rock. Country Fried Rock radio programs are distributed to public radio through the Public Radio Exchange, prx.org. Our Country Fried Rock stinger is from Steve Soto and the Twisted Hearts.
Ever he been helping us some country fried rock.